One more thing I want to show you about quiz data. I would just want to go through the process of associating a learning objective and then linking it up with the report so you can get your statistics. So I purposefully left one objective out of here. It was the one on African art. So if I go to art history and I navigate through my system here, you can see I left out everything on African art. So if I check that, it'll add selected. And then if I scroll down, I'll see African art. Now, you can see here it says this learning objective is not being evaluated. That means it's not going to show up in any of my specific objective data. It will, the questions associated with African art show up on the regular quiz results, but not here. So in order to do that, I need to add an assessment. So if I go here, I can pick from the quiz score or the score in the selected questions. So that's kind of important to think about. If you choose quiz score, it will evaluate this objective based on a threshold you set on the overall quiz score. So if I only have like one question from that objective, I might go with the overall quiz score because then the student would have to answer that right to achieve that objective. And so that's just 1 out of 1. So I thought it'd be better to go on the quiz score for that. That's just me personally. You might have a different way of thinking about that. Then there's score on selected questions. If I have like over 3 or more questions, I'll give it a score on selected questions. So I'm going to pick that for this. The activity is required to complete the learning objective, and then I can pick a threshold depending on the number of questions. I think there was 4. I could put in a number so at least they have to answer one of the questions. Now, this percentage is interesting because I might have, say, 4 questions, and you would think, well, if you get at least one right, that would be 25%. But say I assign different point level to those questions, like maybe 2 of the questions are worth 2 points. So then I would have a total of 2, 4, and then 5, 6 for the other 2. So it would be 1 out of 6, which would be about a 16% for answering one question versus if I had 4 questions and they were each worth 1 point, one question would be worth 25%. So it's more about keep in mind the difficulty level you set for each question and then the number of points. That's more of that's how the results are given based on like the point total for the series of questions, not the number of questions. So anyway, if I save this, and then one thing I did forget to do, usually I associate my questions first. Oh, I think it remembered it from the previous time I've done this because I've played around with this several times. So, oh look, it remembered the ones from the first time I did it. So that's cool. One thing I wanted to mention on this screen here, when we're selecting the questions we want to associate with the learning objective, it's kind of nice how they show you the points values you set up in the quiz editor associated with that question and the difficulty. So if you kind of forget what your points were, you can look here, and that can help you determine the proper threshold you'd want for just this section of questions to set in order for that student or students to earn credit for passing just this specific learning objective, mine here being African art. So I have 4 questions associated with African art, but my point values, let's see, that'd be this first column here. The point values are 4, 5, 6. So just like I was talking about in my previous example, I did have 6 points associated with this objective, not 4, because this short answer question was more difficult and has several parts to it, so it's worth more points than just 1. But if you're keeping things simple and you have a multiple choice quiz, it's all multiple choice or true false in there, and each one of those questions is worth just 1 point. You kind of simplify your life that way, but you as the teacher, however you set that up, if you vary the point values, just keep that in mind. Then now I can go to this caret and I can view statistics, and results. So if I go to results, I can see all the students met the threshold. This one barely did. You must have just got one exactly right out of there. Again, I'm playing all these students, so I made up the results. But so you can see they all completed that objective. So I can just X out of that to go back. And then if I go to statistics, then I see more general, and here's like this the same data here pretty much for each student, and then the grade distribution and the average. So that's how we associate our questions with our objectives and assess them, and set up that association properly so you can get data for the specific objectives you've tagged or added to your quiz in the quiz editor. So that's the process and the benefits of doing that. I hope you found this helpful, and good luck editing your quiz.